What's going on? It's your main man, Built Up Real Nice, aka W Boom Boom Jesus, aka whatever you want to call me, whether you know me as a model, however you came across this gamer, whatever the case is. We are here with the one and only Pastor, Family Guy.
Wow.
This is the guy I've been trying to get my hands on for the longest, and just so happened we had some time today to just sit down. So please introduce yourself to everyone. Let them know who you are, what you do, and then we'll dive into some good stuff.
I appreciate that, man. And man, how do you answer that question? I am a father, a husband. I am a pastor and a content creator. And by the grace of God, I get to shepherd and speak to a congregation, our congregation here in Staten Island, New York, called Christ Uncensored. I've been pastoring for the last 10 years of my life, been in ministry for about 20 years. And it's all been through the grace of God. I resonate with Paul. He says, I am who I am because of the grace of God. So
Ooh, I'm already getting chills. I didn't know you was that deep into it. Ooh. Okay, all right. So I got a quick question for you. You know, people say they're called to do things, right? And they're called
yeah.
into ministry, they're called to preach. And how did you know that you were meant for what you're doing? You know, because you know, people say people have so many talents. They can do so many good things in this world, and you know, God gives us so many different talents. How did you know that you were called? Or when is that moment like, okay, God, I'm gonna listen to you, I'm gonna do this. And like I said, you've invested already 10 years and probably more than that, getting to that point, you know, to where you are. How did you know? Like, what was that? All right,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
do it.
You know what's interesting is that you you don't always know before you get started. Sometimes you get started and then you find out that this in fact is what God called you to do. Because sometimes you're just kind of like figuring it out. You're testing the waters, you're getting involved in so many different things
Yeah.
because maybe you're being led by another pastor or people that really care about you and see the potential in you. And so I want to say that there was an inkling that I had at a young age, but it wasn't nothing that was solid, nothing
Hmm.
that I felt, like convicted by. And so when I gave my life to the Lord, I want to say maybe less than a year later, the youth pastor there was like, "Yo, Ro, you're gonna preach." Just like that. He's like, "Yo," I was just sharing with him my Bible study. And he was like, "Yo, Ro, you're gonna preach." And I had never preached before a day in my life. I've
Right.
never spoken in front of an audience. And my youth pastor was just like, "Hey, you're gonna preach tonight." And it was tonight, and so I had literally maybe a couple of hours. I had a couple of hours to prepare, I guess, what I was gonna preach. And by the grace of God, I saw the results of that, and it just started kind of like becoming more solidified in my heart that this is what God called me to do. That was just kind of like a one moment. And then I went on a journey of just being developed and going to Bible Institute
Hmm.
because I felt I want to say the nudges of God.
Hmm.
I like to use that. Like I always feel like sometimes we feel like God forces things and God is dragging you, but God just kept giving me these little nudges and these little signs.
Hmm.
And it wasn't until maybe a couple of years within that I knew that God had called me to preach the gospel.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So I
Okay.
want to say I
So
got started. I got started before I knew in my heart that this is what God called me to do.
Gotcha.
You
Okay.
know?
I always got to ask that question because a
Yeah.
lot of people come across. I'm like, look, how did you know? Did you know? Because people like, you know, people tell you, I think you're called to be a pastor. I said, well, I ain't got no phone call. He made a text me, but I still ain't got the
He's like,
text
yo, I'll
message.
speak to him too. I'll
I
speak to
talk
him
to him
too.
every night, but like I ain't, you know, he ain't
You
hit me
tell
on
me.
the line yet. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
why he
But
telling you? Why he telling you my business? Right?
exactly. Like you talk to him, let me get that number because I need to holler at him
uh,
about some things. But
uh,
it's just it's a powerful time right now in society, not just you know in this country, but in all countries, in all shapes, form, and fashion. And a lot of people are dealing with, I've noticed, me personally, of making mistakes, doing the wrong things, having
mm,
setbacks. And it's like these setbacks are on top of setbacks. And as we're going against these things, whether relationship wise, you know, couples wise, if even if you don't have a significant other, family wise, whatever the case is, job wise, I feel like everybody's been hammered right now
mm,
over and over again. And it's
mm,
like you get a fresher breath air, but then you get pulled down 20 more feet below the way you were before. And what are some things that you suggest or that you can advice that you can give to those people? I know personally I am one of them. I am not a perfect citizen. I am not a perfect guy. I've made a lot of mistakes. I know people see the light that I shine, that I shine everywhere in my talents, but I tell people I made a lot of mistakes. And in order for me to
Yeah.
pass those mistakes, I had to forgive myself, I had to keep moving.
Mm,
I had to, go in the cave. We call it going in the cave. Like my sister Robin says, we go in the cave to talk to God. Sometimes he isolates us. But what are some things we can do if we're in those storms, if we're in those dark moments, if we're in,
yeah.
we
Yeah.
just can't find the light anywhere? What are some things, Pastor, that you suggest that we can do on a daily basis or, through our daily routine just to give us some hope and to keep us going and to
Yeah.
move in our faith?
Man, I appreciate that. I think that when it comes to what we are facing on the regular day, right? Sometimes it's not the biggest storm that comes. It's not, you know, an earthquake that took place. Sometimes it's not something catastrophic.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's just the persistence of something that may be small,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still harmful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what has helped me throughout the years, I can maybe share from my experience and maybe some of the things that I've kind of shared with our leaders and
Mm-hmm.
the pastors in our church is that it's to be proactive, right? So, like, you get prepared for the weather, right? And I
Right.
know some of this too because you've had your own journey, and I've seen, obviously from the outside looking in, but I've
Ooh.
seen, I've seen some of your journey and how
Ooh. Yes.
you being a model and then you being in ministry and
Yeah.
even you've been an inspiration in terms of your weight journey and the amount of weight you lost. And so,
Right.
but when I look at the weather outside, you prepare to dress according to the weather, right? So I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to go out there. It's blazing outside, and it's like 80, 90 degrees outside. Like I'm
Right.
not going to go out there with a North Face jacket on, a bubble coat because
Yes.
it's not going to suit me. It's only going to make things worse. And I think sometimes we don't take in mind of the conditions and the weathers that we're about to enter. So I know that for the most part, my experience has been that there's a lot of uh, offendability out there. There's people that get easily offended. There's
Mm-hmm.
people that, like you just drive. I realize this, Rob. Most of my sins happen in my car. Like,
Wow. That's okay. Okay. All right. Please do tell because I want to hear this.
most of my sins happen in my car. Somebody tries to cut you off.
Yeah,
Someone
roll
gives
rage.
you
Oh
the
yeah,
yeah.
man. Yeah.
So I'm like, what in the world, right? So what do? I condition myself for that. I call it a state. I prepare myself to be in a state that will be able to ascertain the things that I'm about to experience in life. And it's not to say that you're going to experience like you just know the negative is going to happen. No, but every day I kind of go through a what I would say is a ritual.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my honestly like I'm conditioning myself every day to prepare myself for what I'm about to walk into. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I encourage to people. I say, so like my leaders, especially like I work from home, so I have it a little bit easier
Mm-hmm.
in that context. But for some people, like you're going to work, you're going here. And so for me, I'm like, yeah, if you're just waking up and just jumping in there, you're allowing your circumstance to dictate your state.
Mm-hmm.
But imagine if you woke up and began to condition yourself to walk into what about you're about to walk into, right? So like I do a forgiveness ritual every morning. I'm releasing forgiveness to those that, Paul says this. He says, give an allowance for offense. He says, give an allowance. Imagine that. Like imagine you
Powerful.
giving people an allowance for offense, which is
That's
to say
powerful.
that you already have an understanding that people will offend you.
Mm-hmm.
People will say something they shouldn't have said. People will not say something maybe they should have said.
Mm-hmm.
And we have this propensity to be offended.
Mm-hmm.
Says, but what if you condition your heart to release forgiveness even before the offense took place?
That's powerful. That's powerful. That is ooh, okay.
So
That is
honestly,
okay.
I condition my heart. I condition my heart to be in a position to forgive before I'm offended. So by the time the offense comes, my heart is already it's already postured. Like have you ever
Mhm.
done any kind of grappling or any wrestling or any you ever done any of that?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I used to be a wrestler.
Oh, all right. So you know this. And you're like six, what are you like 6'5"?
Yeah, 6'5".
Oh man, you don't play. You don't play. So bros, right?
Yeah,
When you go to wrestle, you get in your wrestling stance. You
yeah,
don't
exactly.
stand up straight because you
No,
get double legged, right?
exactly,
And so in the
exactly.
same way, so my heart is in a wrestling stance of forgiveness. It's
That is,
already prepared. Um, and of course, we don't get it right all the time, right? Like,
of course.
like
It's practice.
if you're married, you ain't getting it right all the time,
Oh
right?
no,
Because
no, no, no. We've had. I'm telling you, man. The new. I just tell you, man. I just thank God for forgiveness because
yeah, bro.
it is. We never know. Sometimes we become so selfish in our own mind on what we deserve and what we see out there, and then
Yeah,
other
yeah,
times you forget. You easily forget what you have in front of you
yeah,
because of something else that you think you is better out there, or something else that you think
yeah,
that can come with relationships, jobs, or whatever the case is, and then the devil blinds you. You
yeah,
just get caught up in the moment, and next thing you know, you this and that, and then you wake up one day like, what am I doing? What am I doing?
yeah,
Then it's just
yeah, yeah.
it just falls into a lot of other things. But that what you said right there, waking up in the morning already in the mindset of forgiving someone,
Correct.
allowing that space is something I've never done. And that
Forgiveness is actually like we talk about it as a topic, like if
Mhm,
it's but forgiveness is actually the essence of life. Like if you think about the way in which Jesus Christ was able to escort abundant life to us, it was
mhm,
through the mechanism of forgiveness. So forgiveness is actually essential for life. So that's why I'm like, I don't talk about forgiveness like a topic.
mhm.
It's actually an everyday thing.
Gotcha.
I live in the standard and in the place of forgiveness. And so like every morning, I do this ritual. This just releasing anyone that's hurt me, for those that will hurt me and not know it. And so your heart becomes now conditioned to extend the grace of God. And again, you at first it might be very difficult. I've done several encounters or retreats where it's kind of like the focus of it has been done. And sometimes you need that surgery, if you will,
Mhm.
like you need those interventions where God needs to come in and do the miraculous. But I also think that there's the practical is part of the miracle, and God could do the miraculous, but our job is to do the practical, and part of doing the practical is just releasing forgiveness.
Gotcha. Oh, that's powerful. That's powerful. Now you hit on another topic in the midst of forgiveness. You said weight loss. And I know one of my biggest battles is putting on weight, losing weight, putting on weight, losing weight. I know how to lose weight. I know how to put it on. I know how to lose weight. I know how to put it on. How do you find the balance in forgiving yourself when you've fallen
Wow.
back into? Because I know you had a great weight loss story too. I kept up with you. I said, oh, this guy's a lot like me. And
Yeah, yeah,
you start to feel yourself. Me personally, I start to feel myself when I'm getting to a point where I'm like, oh snap, like I need to slow down a little bit. I need to get back in my groove. But how do you forgive yourself? Because I feel like when people have setbacks like that, even though they've reached the goal before, they spiral
yeah,
even deeper into something. How do you reset your mind and reset your, I guess, vision on being the better self, health wise, mentally, because I got, I'm in the middle of coming back again. I'm in the middle of, seeing myself healthy again. And I'm
yeah,
healthy, but I'm saying getting to a point where I feel comfortable enough to do what I
yeah,
want to do when I want to do it, how I want to move my life. How do you reel yourself back in? Because we constantly go back there, and we
yeah,
constantly go back into those waters. Uh,
yeah.
so what are some techniques you use personally, Pastor, or that you can recommend to keep reeling yourself back in, even though you keep going out into those waters sometimes, and you might not even know you're in those waters at times until it's too late. So
Yeah.
what are some techniques and methods you use to reel yourself back in after times you've been there before?
Yeah, I appreciate. Listen, man, I appreciate your transparency in that conversation because if anybody's ever struggled with weight loss, really big. Like the biggest I was 330 something pounds.
Right.
Literally, I got on the scale and the scale wouldn't tell me the weight, and the scale maxed out at 330. And so anybody that's struggled with that knows that it's a little bit different for that person than it is for anybody else. Like in full transparency, like my brother, we've been having this conversation, my younger brother, and he's really open-handed with this stuff. So talking about it is not a thing. But my brother has lost maybe 150 pounds
Mm-hmm.
and has gained maybe 80 pounds of those 150 pounds back, and then he just started on the journey again to lose the weight. But
Right.
you and I both know the battle between those things.
It
And
is.
so
It is.
sometimes you're just like, it could really be hopeless at times,
Mm-hmm.
because you don't know if you have another run in you at
Exactly.
times. And so the older you get as well, you kind of get more comfortable with, well, this is just what it's going to be. I
Right.
tried and it didn't work. I don't want to sound super spiritual, but
No, 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 no. Hit us with
you
it.
know, one of the things that have really helped me is just understanding the way God sees me. That in itself empowers me to do the impossible. If you think about when he says, a lot of people don't catch this part of it. It says, we are more than conquerors. And then it says, through he who loved us. We are more than conquerors. And sometimes we stop short there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, we are more than conquerors through he who loved us.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I kind of allow his love to be the vision that I have for myself, then it allows me to extend that type of grace and forgiveness for myself.
Mm-hmm.
It allows me like, wait, look, if this is what's helped me when I've done things that I'm like, at times have felt like, nah, you deserve to sink in your
Right.
shame and
Right.
guilt. You kind of
Right.
deserve you when I'm paying the consequences for my actions. Because sometimes you were like, we're dealing with stuff like you spoke about earlier. Is like we're dealing with all these things externally, but there's some things. Come on, like we're just dealing with the consequences of our actions, and when we're dealing with the consequences of our actions, sometimes that could lead us to that place of condemnation where we're just beating ourselves up. Yo, Rob, you should have known better.
Right.
Ro, you should have, like, come on, you know this, you did this, and it comes into that cycle. And honestly, man, understanding the way God sees me in that place. So I think about, how could I forgive myself? How
Mm-hmm.
could I forgive myself? Well, this is what we know about God. This is what we know about God. The Bible says in Hebrews, he says that he has forgiven, and he says he has forgiven our wickedness
Mm-hmm.
and forgotten our sins. So God would have done a good enough job just by forgiving our sins.
Mm-hmm.
But the person that has infinite knowledge has chosen to, the person who has infinite knowledge has chosen to forget our sins,
Mm-hmm.
which is to say that he forgives us in a way that erases the wrongdoing from the beginning. And when I think about that, I just think about that God is giving me a clean slate, and he'll give me a clean slate as many times as is needed for me to
Yeah.
see myself in the way that he sees me. And so
Now, Ro, hold on, hold
being
on, hold on. We need to clear this up because people think, all right, I can do this, I'm gonna be forgiven. All right, I can do this, I'm gonna be forgiven. People go in the pre-notion of, hey, I can just do this just to get the money, and then I can, God to forgive me. I can just do this just to get by, then God to forgive me. How, this is what I want to tap on right now.
Yeah,
How,
yeah,
what's the difference between that and then God forgiving you? Like sometimes we know it's wrong and we
yeah,
still do it, sin
yeah,
gets the best of us. But sometimes people intentionally do it over and over again, saying, oh, I know God to forgive me again. I know God to forgive me again. They go in the pre-notion of, I'm gonna do this because I know God is gonna forgive me. And as long as he
yeah,
forgives me at the end of the day, I can still make it happen.
yeah,
How does that work?
yeah, yeah. How do you reconcile the two?
Yes.
Yeah, I love that question because, well, that's a whole class. All right, I'm gonna give you,
Well, it's a whole class.
but I'm gonna
Just
give you
give me
the nut.
a little
I'm
synopsis.
gonna give you the nutshell. All right, let's just start here, Rob. Let's just start here. Look,
Okay.
check this out. Paul had to Paul had to address this 4 times in his letters. Paul
Oh,
says several times in his letters, he says, "Shall we continue to sin
right.
so that grace will abound all the more?" He
Mm-hmm.
says that four
Right.
times. It's actually one of his most repeated phrases. The things that he actually repeats the most is that.
Mhm.
shall we continue to sin so that grace will abound all the more? And he
Mhm.
says, of course not. Now, imagine if he has to address this 4 times. Imagine what people were thinking that they had to ask the question.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
people, whatever Paul was preaching, whatever Paul was sharing, Rob,
Hmm.
it would cause people to think, hey, can I continue to sin? So imagine, watch this. I would even say this: the fact that you're asking this question shows I'm doing the right thing.
Right.
Because if watch this, because if people are not asking this question, then we are not sharing the grace of God in the same way Paul was. Right. So we start
Right.
there. Right. Let's
Right.
start
Right.
there.
Right.
So to be more specific to the answer to that question is that I definitely get the concern because I know that there are people, right? So like
Hmm.
there are people that may see it from a conceptual standpoint, and I
Hmm.
think that that's what Paul was addressing.
Gotcha.
So yeah, there are people that are like, "Oh, hold on a second. This sounds like a get out of jail free card." Like,
Yeah.
and what I would say is that those people are still in the conception stage. They're still conceiving
Gotcha.
the grace of God like a theory, like a concept,
Hmm.
but not like a person,
Gotcha.
right? So, like when I think about sinning, oh, I could do this because God will forgive me. My response to that would be that we still haven't sunk in deep to the grace of God, because when you do, it actually
Wouldn't even be a question.
turns you away.
Hmm.
It turns you away from
Yeah.
sin.
Gotcha.
It's never this unremorseful approach to sin.
Hmm.
The grace of God. Now, it doesn't mean that people in the name of the grace of God won't do it. And at first, they might do it because they still haven't sunk in deep. So at first, people might be like, wait a minute, this sounds like I continue to sin. God will forgive me. And they'll go out and sin.
Hmm.
And God for sure will forgive them. And
Hmm.
they'll go out and sin. And God will forgive them. But the more they sink in deeper into that forgiveness, the more it turns them away from sin, is what Titus says. He
Gotcha.
says, it's the grace of God that appeared to all men, teaching us how to say no to wickedness
Yeah.
and say yes to godliness. So, no, I get it. I know that there are a lot of people that at first they may start their journey that way.
Right.
At
Gotcha.
first they may be like, yo, this sounds like I could just go, you know what I mean? Go
I
get
just
this
want.
bag, do my thing. God will
Uh,
forgive me,
I'm
you
cool.
know?
Yeah, but okay, yeah. That's gonna be on another session. But I had to bring
Yeah,
it up
bro.
on this one because a lot of people are stuck. I've talked to a lot of people. I'm like, bro, like it's wrong. Like it's yeah, yeah. But God will
Yeah.
forgive me. I'm like, nah, you don't have that relationship with like it hasn't built up yet. Like because
Yeah.
if you feel it that is that wrong and you're still doing it, then you really don't have a love for
Yeah.
God. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
that's my take on it, and I'm learning a lot about it. But yeah, when I know people rebel and I know people are, getting their emotions and they do things they don't want to do or they do things that are not, of God. And nobody's perfect. Everybody's gonna have
Yeah. Yeah.
challenges. Everybody's gonna make mistakes over and over again. And I
Yeah.
tell people, if you come to me and you're too perfect, it's something wrong. I can't be your friend. Like I
It's
need
something being
somebody
in it.
that
I
I can
get
go
it.
through the trenches with that can, actually like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, I've done this too before. Like, oh, okay, you have? Like, okay, all right, cool. Like, so I ain't did it no more, but I just need somebody that can relate to it. So, okay, okay, I just had to get that out, bro, because
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Listen, Paul had to deal with it, right?
yeah,
Paul had to deal. If Paul had
yeah,
to deal with it, we must deal with it too. Now, watch. Let me just say this last thing on this, Rob. You know what? I never asked growing up. I
well,
never asked the question, "Can I sin?" Because you know why? Because the way I was raised was we knew exactly all the sins that you had to be hyper aware of. You know what I
right,
mean? And so
right,
I think that sometimes in the effort of like in the earnest effort of people wanting to get people to stop sinning, we end up switching up the message,
hmm,
which is unfortunately counter to what the grace of God is. It's actually the grace of God that continues to lead people to repentance.
right.
And so you keep sharing the power of the message, and that actually brings people back to God.
And it's really educating people because a lot of people, we have kids raising kids nowadays. We have,
Yeah,
people that don't even know what church is or never been in the church and understand what, people having the same upbringings, certain people have had in the church. I grew up in the church, so, when you bring God to some people, they're like, what? Who's
yeah,
this person like, whatever the case is. But I think one of the biggest things I've learned, and I've been in a lot of industries that have a lot of rough sides to them, is that the devil will bless you too.
Yeah.
And that's you don't want that blessing.
Correct.
I'm
Comes with a
telling you,
cost.
you don't want that blessing because people like, oh yeah, life is good and I got all this, I got all this, and I'm like, yeah, but peace, peace is not in there. Y'all have
Yeah.
a house, but you don't have a home. My mom used to say a lot
Yeah.
of people got big houses, but when you walk in them, it's real cold. And
Mm.
certain things. So
Mm.
I've been in situations where I met people. I've been around environments and things, but I've always tried to use my light in those dark rooms at times, and sometimes it gets the best of you. Sometimes you get pulled in, or you make a mistake, but sometimes you're there just to show people there is a light, and sometimes you end up pulling people
Right.
back out with you in a situation or area or environment that you was in, and so that's what I've learned. But okay,
How's
so
that been? How's that been for you? Like just being,
it's
because you're in the model industry, and I'm
it's
like,
it's
and then
an
people
art.
say I should model too, but I'm like,
Sure,
nah, I'll just leave that for
sure.
Rob. I'll just
You
leave
you 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 you're a great model. You'll be a great
that.
boss.
But being in that industry and
Ooh.
shining your light at
Mm,
the same time, walking
mm.
in your own faith, how's that been? How's that been for you?
I've learned a lot. I've learned that you have to go through a lot of things for yourself. People can tell you, people,
Mm,
godly people can pray for you, but in order to fully understand the grace of God and the things He can do for you as an
mm,
individual, has to be done alone. No best friend can be
wow,
with you. No parent. I don't care how
wow,
close you are to people. It has to be done alone because it's through the grace of God, the things I've come against, the things I've done, that I'm still here. And
wow.
I can't, there is no other person or individual that could say, like, oh, thank you. People lead you to God and people pray for you. Those is, when two come together, I believe all in that. But until I was actually alone, no spouse,
Mm,
no spouse helping me, no brother, no mother, no, and they all there to support. They're literally right there, right next to you. But until you take on something alone yourself, you don't understand
mm,
the grace of God. And I tell
wow.
people that all day, all every day, all the time. And I'm just like, you don't understand grace yet, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
And I tell people, some people have anointing on them that you can't break. Whether I don't care what type of stuff they do, some people have that type of grace and anointing on them because they meant to do something. God has them in this place to do something. And you know, good guys do finish last sometimes. Good people do finish last sometimes. But we got to remind ourselves we're not living for this world. We're here to
right,
do a job for the man
right.
upstairs. And so I think one of the greatest things my mom ever told me, and it almost brought me to tears when she told me, she said, you know what, when you get to heaven, you gonna look into your bucket of talents, and God say you use every last one of them. So,
Mm,
so I've done hip hop music, I've done Christian hip hop music, I've entertainment, stage plays, modeling,
wow.
educator. I have so many talents, and I'm constantly saying, God, what do you need me for? What
Mm,
do you need me? Like, my home church, a lot of people, my sister Robin, my mom is the evangelist. My sister Robin, we go back once a month to my home church and preach. I record them, so I'm always doing, even though I don't post about it, I'm always doing stuff for God. And I tell
wow.
people, you never know what people are really doing or what they're going through. And I say we're
Mm,
so quick to judge people, me personally too, because when I see somebody, oh, that's just this person is like this person is like this.
right, right.
Like,
You
y'all
don't know what
point
they're
out
going through.
exactly. You point out one bad thing this person has done, but you have no idea the 99 other things this person is, has done for people, So um I just wanted to bring you personally in on these drop-ins, or however many times with me, just to show people that um there is a light out there. And
Amen.
it's not based it's not based on falsehood, it's not based on people, it's based on the man above, which is God. And in order for people to see that, I think real authentic testimonies is at an all-time high right now, because we get so
Yeah,
many testimonies. I don't hear testimonies enough anymore, because everybody
yeah,
wants to stay private and keep it to them. I'm not
yeah,
saying tell all your personal business, but I said, if you can
yeah.
tell your testimony and what you've overcome. I've did photo
Mm,
shoots where I go on the set one day and then I'm in my room crying the next day in the pitch dark,
wow,
and so,
wow.
I learned that I need to be alone to understand the work that God has for me and understand Him. I can't look at it in other people. I can't have people validate who I am, what I do, when I do it. I can't have.
Mm.
I got to have a relationship with them because if I don't, I'm going to be quick to jump to what everybody think I should do. Oh, you should do this. You should do that. You should do this. You should do that. Come over here and do this. Come over here and do that. And I'm like, no. So I've learned to say no, which is one of the best qualities you can have.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I learned that I'm not living for anything materialistic. I'm living
Mm.
to have a peaceful life, a peaceful home. I'm living to be at peace with everything. And that
Mm.
comes with what you talked about. I'm going to add that forgiveness in the morning, having that. Because Atlanta traffic ain't no joke. I've said some stuff in my truck that I know God be like, oh, Lord, you are my child. Please forgive me. So I've done things and I'm like, oh, goodness, like, God, I apologize. Every night I go to my knees and I'm like, God, forgive me for anything I've done today. It wasn't my intentions or, it wasn't done intentionally or with malice, but forgive me. And I think I've grown a lot in taking breaks and taking hiatus. I saw you took a hiatus, to work on you for a little while. And I respected that so much because people, expects you to be there every single day to drop of a dime. Hey, I don't see
Yeah,
you
yeah.
posting funny stuff anymore. I'm like, no, this is transparent. This,
Mm.
what I've gone through this past year. You don't know what type of physical or health concerns I've faced. You don't know what family, issues we have, but y'all are so quick to judge somebody on what type of shoes they got on,
Mm.
they wearing, or and we're trained to look at that type of stuff, bro. And I tell people, it'll
Yeah.
be a million great comments, but that one negative comment, it'll throw
Mm.
off our whole day. Me and point, I'm
Oh,
like,
nice steak.
yeah, why is this person commenting? Like they don't know, and then it takes away from everything you just talked about or what you stand for because you say, don't let this one person take you out, but you hear entertaining this one comment because somebody put it on your post, out from all overseas. You don't even know this person.
Yeah.
Ain't even got a real picture, but this person, put
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've learned to have patience, pray for a lot of people, forgive myself, forgive others. And I've noticed a brighter light over the past, recently, I would say over the past year. I thought I knew a lot of things, but I know absolutely nothing. And
What's the biggest thing you learned during your time off?
oh man, it's a
I'm
lot
sure
of
there
big
was a
nuggets.
lot, you
It's a
know.
lot of big nuggets, but I would say
Yeah.
the biggest thing that I learned is it's a lot of big ones, but patience
Yeah.
is the number
Mm.
one.
Mm.
Patience is the number one because
Mm.
no matter how hard you work at something, no matter how hard you plan something, no matter how hard you put the ducks in a row, if it's not meant for you, it is not going to be for you.
Wow.
If God doesn't have it planned for you, it is not going to work. That doesn't mean give up on your dreams or facing your dreams. I'm just saying your steps are ordered. And
Right.
whether you believe it or not, we all go off course. We all go into the forest. We all come back on the steps. We all go into the forest again because we think we're supposed to be over here, over there. Your steps are ordered, but the patience is what I'm. If it's for you, it's for you. And a lot of people get upset when they don't get things, and then a year later they're like, "Oh, thank God I didn't get this job because this happened." I think God is normally protecting you from something that you don't even see,
Mm.
and so that's patience is probably one of the biggest things I've learned, and just being thankful for the small things. We get so caught up in, we pray for so much, then when we get it, we forget about it. Pray for a
Mm.
house, you get it, forget about it. Pray for a home, pray for, opportunities. We get it, we forget about them. God, please, I promise you, I don't drink alcohol like that, but I
Mm.
promise you I'm not gonna drink no more because I can't be hungry.
Mm.
And then you get a release, and next weekend you back doing what you was doing. And I just
Right.
think that is, you know, I was brought to my knees. Uh, my wife says, you ever played the game in the bedroom where the floor is lava? You
Yeah,
stay on
yeah,
the bed. Yeah, I just felt like I was praying in lava. So
yeah.
that's how on fire I was trying to get things back aligned psychologically, mentally, and like, what is God doing? What is He doing for me? Why did He have me in this situation? And I'm like, why am I asking Him? I put myself in that situation. Why am I?
Mm.
you know, he
Yeah,
he he guarded me through the process. Yeah, there are
yeah,
consequences, and yeah, you have, but you're forgiven, and that's the biggest thing. and you learn,
Yeah.
and then you use that as a testimony for other people that may be going through the same thing. So I have I have a spiritual sense in me where I can feel people, and it scares the crap out of me sometimes because I can be randomly walking down a New York street or in Atlanta, and God to say, "Hey, just tell that person, it's gonna be all right." And I'm like, "Oh man,
Wow.
this is like this is weird. Like I'm this big guy, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna be all right, man. Just keep going." It's just like, and every time I've listened to that voice, it's been right, and I'm like, oh, like
Wow.
I just feel people sometimes. I can wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning and message somebody and say, "Hey, I don't know what you're going through, but I'm praying for you." And then people are like,
Mm,
"Oh my God, I just rolled over and I just saw this message, and my mind was in a place that where it didn't need to be." And I'm like, okay. So like I said, I ain't got called to be no pastor, but he could text me to talk to some pastors. I literally want to just use my platforms to inspire people, entertain people. I tell people I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. And
yeah.
but having you on, man, this is the first of many on the big talk show. So I'm like, I got to get some faith in here. I got to get some God fearing men in here. I got to get some, men and women. I'm not just, singling anything out or whatever your pronouns are. I got to get people in here to understand people are going through things. People have lives, and we're gonna make it. It's light in that tunnel, even though you don't see it. It's light.
That's right.
So yeah. So before we get up out of here, Ro, because I can't take too much of your time. We busy.
No
How can
worries.
people find you? How can people reach you? And just like I say, you're a pastor in New York, but how can people reach out to you if they want? I know you guys have. I don't know if y'all do corporate prayers or lift up things, and all that type of stuff. But
Yeah,
I know
for
we
sure.
do. I know we do. So when people ask me to pray for them, we just put it in corporate prayer with my
Yeah,
family and everything. So how do they reach you? How do they find out, about you? What, talk to me. Let them know how they can reach you.
absolutely. I am Ro Remedios at any social media platform so that you could subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And our church is christuncensored.org. christuncensored.org. Our service times are there Sunday at 4 p.m. If you're in the tri-state area, stop by. I would love to shake your hand and greet you. And yeah, but you can find me on any social media platform. I am Ro Remedios.
I'm gonna have to drop by one of these days. Now, Ro, do you think I'm Spanish?
Heck yeah. But I know,
Far, far
I
from it.
know, I
Far
know.
from it, man. Ro, I wanted to ask you that before I got up out of here. I'm
Black
like,
and white, right?
nope, all black.
No?
Nothing in me, man.
Oh,
I just look like a melting pot of religion. So I am all black, man.
wow.
Now, my wife is Puerto Rican. So
Okay.
I don't want to learn Spanish because then I'll be held accountable for more things to do when she speaks to me, or hear what she's really saying when she's upset about something. So I know enough to get through an airport, but yeah. So it's funny. A lot of people think that, but no, this is gonna be a great run, man. And I definitely let me just stop. Y'all make sure y'all check them out. We're gonna get into some more episodes. I'm gonna talk to my boy offline for a little minute, but make sure y'all check him out. Y'all already know who I
Let's
am.
go.
Y'all know how we get down. We're gonna make it happen.